You're listening to My Inner Teacher with Peter Starius and Crystal Ariel. The answers you seek are within you.
So the interesting relationship, I met Andrew on Instagram, and I don't remember how exactly, but it must have been like 4 years ago. And I just saw his name, and Otazo is a family name of mine. And I was like, who is this guy? Not very many people have that name. So I took a screenshot of his account and I sent it to my grandmother. I'm like, do you know this guy? And she's like, oh yeah, he's an Otazo. He looks exactly like an Otazo. And I was like, all right. So I start asking him about like, who's your grandfather? Well, it turns out that we're cousins, cousins of cousins of cousins.
Right.
And I invited him on the first podcast I ever did, like back in 2022, and I featured him, and I was so amazed by everything that he was doing, picking up trash, because usually it's something that you do, to feel good about yourself or because you want to make the world a better place, but it lasts a weekend or, like 2 weeks, and then people just go back to their regularly scheduled programming. But then as I got even deeper into learning about him, I found out he's super interesting and very talented, and well educated, and just like his story is amazing. So yeah, Andrew, I thought that it would be really fun to chat with you today and Peter about your inner teacher and how it's guided you.
Yeah,
Where
happy to
you
do
are
it.
today.
Happy to be on. Yeah.
I also would add to that, Andrew. I've been getting into this kind of program of asking our guests how it all started, literally going back to when you were a child. Did you know when you were a child that you were different than other children, or different than your siblings, or different in some way that kind of unbeknown to you started leaning you into this path of listening inside?
There were definitely a couple of moments. Well, first of all, I'm colorblind, so I learned that when I was 5, and definitely different from most other children. But there were definitely several, I guess, revelations as I was growing up that made me realize that I had a different perspective as many of my other, I don't know, colleagues in school. So one was the way that I grew up, was that my dad's uh, um, version of fun on the weekend was inviting my grandfather over and then having me and my sister help them dig holes in the ground to plant tropical fruits. So like in the middle of the summer, like blazing hot, we would be just digging holes into the limestone in Florida. Um, and like the thing about that is that there's like a foot of topsoil and then it's just rock. It is just solid rock all the way down. So that was one thing that I realized that most other children didn't have in their upbringing. And I think that probably laid the foundation. My dad, like, and my grandfather, both of them really loved nature and really loved like individual trees and plants and entire ecosystems. That was really like, I guess that became part of a fundamental part of my upbringing that I realized a lot of kids didn't have. And then also like I have never stopped reading a book since I was like 5 years old. I've always been reading some book. And I thought that was normal. And I remember having a conversation with one of my classmates in like first grade and just assuming that he was reading a book too. And he's like, no, I never read. I was like, what? You
Right.
don't read? That's crazy. And then I realized like most people aren't constantly reading a book. Like right now I'm reading 4 different books at the same time. And
Wow.
that's really weird for most people. But like until I was a certain age, I thought everybody did it, but definitely they don't.
No, I have a teenage daughter who, when she was younger, she loved books. But man, as soon as that cell phone showed up, the kind of love of books kind of went out the window. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping it'll come back. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I can't
you're
believe you read 4 at a time, though. I struggle with one.
I don't have a choice in the matter. I'm in 2 different book clubs, and then I read for myself, and then I'm gonna start teaching a class at Florida International University in the fall on satire. So I have to like read about the theory of satire, which I'm a satirist. I know how to write satire. I don't exactly know the theory of it, so I'm trying to like pick up on it. So there's a lot going on.
I want to pursue that too. Like you seem to have this bipolar career, right?
I hope not. Career, okay, maybe the career.
Yeah, career. Definitely not well, who knows? I'm just getting to know you. Um,
Hmm.
I have a quad polar career, so
Hmm.
I can relate to having more than one hat to wear.
Hmm. Yeah, my career has been wild. Um, it's been many different careers. And it's not like I planned it out that way, it just kind of happened. I went to West Point out of high school, convinced I was going to be a U.S. Army officer for the rest of my career. Then I spent 2 years there, and I realized how, how awful that was. So much for my Army career. So I came back to Miami after 2 years, and now serious hearing loss in an ear and a broken shin. So that was great. Came back, graduated from the University of Miami. I really loved foreign policy, so I thought I was going to go be a foreign service officer in the State Department. So, I'm native Spanish speaker, given our shared Cuban family. And I like went down to Latin America. I lived in Buenos Aires. I lived in Sao Paulo. I learned Portuguese, and then I went to work for the State Department. I got an internship at the State Department, in the Office of Andean Affairs, back when it was an actual functioning agency in the federal government, unlike today. And that was amazing. That was really great. And then, the recession hits, and like I had no idea what to do. So my
Which
partner got
which
in
recession was that?
2007,
Right,
2008, that
right,
recession.
that one.
Um, and my partner got into Harvard Law School, and I decided to move up to Boston with her. And I wound up living in her dorm room for 7 months because it was impossible to get a job anywhere. And eventually, I got a job at the Harvard Kennedy School because the former Mexican president, Felipe Calderon, had just left his time in office, and he came to the Kennedy School for a fellowship, and they needed an assistant. So I got hired for that out of the blue. I mean, it was just literally a shot in the dark. Um, the um, the description, the job description said assistant to former Latin American policymaker, and I just on a whim applied, and I remember sitting in the interview office with the HR lady because I also applied to other jobs, and she's like, "Oh, I see you applied to this like assistant position." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't really want to be an assistant. I want to do research." She's like, "Oh, okay, well, it's with Felipe Calderon," and my jaw dropped, and I said, "Yeah, I want that job." Because I had studied his policies in high school, or not in high school, excuse me, in my master's program. And I had, I was in the State Department when he was in office. So, like, I knew his policies very well. And so I was hired for that job.
Wow.
Some crazy how. With absolutely no, there's no reason why I should have been hired for that job. Because the man went from a staff of like 200 to me, and I'd never been an assistant to a president in my life, obviously. So that was a very steep learning curve, and it was extremely stressful. But it was a good experience overall. And then he goes back to Mexico, and I'm stuck without a job again. And I, on a whim, applied to the Harvard Business School to be a case writer, which is like the basis of their entire curriculum. That not just for them, but like for thousands of different business schools and graduate and undergraduate programs and corporate programs around the world. And I had no, there's no reason why they should have hired me again because I knew nothing about business, like zero, but they hired me. And I basically Googled my way to an MBA to figure out, like, I was writing case studies on, like, the FDA approval process and medical device manufacturing and, like, all
Wow.
these crazy esoteric things that I knew nothing about. And so I did that for a while. And then my partner graduated law school. And, Boston's very cold, and I wanted to come back to Miami. So I came back to Miami, and I couldn't find a job here because none of my skill sets were relevant at all and cared about Harvard Business School or anything else. So I got a job as the executive director of the Cuba Study Group, which was they were best known for writing the diplomatic and legal um, framework that the Obama administration used to open up relations with Cuba back in the day. So I was hired, and I did everything for them, and I had to move to DC again. So I lived up in DC for 3 years, and I did all these things I'd never done before, like, educate lawmakers on Capitol Hill and talk to different federal agencies and do media. Like, I'd never done any of these things before, and I freaking
There's a
just,
pattern here, Andrew, isn't there?
tell me about it. We're not even done yet. Yeah, we got more to come. So yeah, I did that for 3 years. But guess what? I was tired of DC, and I wanted to come back to Miami. So I came back to Miami. Once again, my skill sets were completely irrelevant. So I had to reinvent myself again and get into public relations. So again, knowing nothing about public relations, and so I worked at these different agencies, two different agencies. One was focused on Latin America, and one was focused nationwide, and it picked up a new skill set, which is public relations. And now I'm working for myself. I'm a communications consultant. I work with a lot of environmental organizations. I work with nonprofits. I work with corporations. I work with government to an extent. So that's what I do for a living. And I'm also a writer. So I wrote a book called The Miami Creation Myth, which is essentially, how the Greeks or the Romans, the Egyptians have their own pantheons of gods and goddesses. I basically did that for Miami. So I created a whole mythic cycle for Miami because it's such a globally unique city. And it won an award. It won an International Latino Book Award, so that's cool. And it's still selling, so that's also cool. Yeah, I know. Yes, very excited. And on top of that, I pick up trash at the Mangroves. So, I'm up to 30,000 pounds of trash.
I don't hear where the satire is coming into this narrative.
Oh man. Okay, so Miami Creation Myth has turned into a monster. Using the communications skills that I picked up along the way, I knew that if I wanted to sell this book, I needed to build a base of support for it. So what I figured I would do is that I would start, this is a very difficult thing to do, believe you me, but I started a social media meme account, essentially making memes about Miami, and that then ballooned into all these different verticals. So like I started a website, and I would write satirical articles about Florida or Latinidad or Miami, and then I'd post that on social media, and I'd gained a followership over the years, and then that turned into a newsletter which goes out every week, and then that became like it's ballooned out of proportion entirely. That's what allowed me to be able to publish this book. That's what like got me the fan base that then went out and bought the book. And yeah, it's all satire, it's all humor.
If you guys are cousins, I can see maybe there's some humor genes in both of your personalities because Crystal's pretty funny. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't even try.
she doesn't even try. Exactly.
I'm not trying to be funny. But I was wondering though. I mean, kind of taking it off the humor, but I was listening to a podcast this morning with these two guys. I think it's called Pero
Let me tell you.
Pero
Let
let me
me
tell
tell
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, it made me miss the way you talk about Miami, leaving and coming back, leaving and coming
Yeah.
back makes me really, like, I started crying. I was like, I didn't realize how much I miss living in Miami because I needed to get away from it for a little bit to
Hmm.
actually appreciate the beauty of it. And there's so much. But I'm listening to this journey of like how long, like the 7 years to write the book, and then the 2 years to do the audio format, and all these different
Yeah.
people. And I'm just the whole time I'm like, why did you do it? Like, and I heard you say that you did it because you wanted to represent Miami, but
Yeah.
why?
Because you don't ever go into a project, you don't ever write a book. You shouldn't. Because you think you're gonna make money or you're gonna be famous or something. You do it because you absolutely need to tell a story. Like deep down inside you, there's a story you need to get out. It's pathological. It makes no sense from a business perspective. It makes no sense personally. Like the risk is so huge of failure. Like I just did it. I didn't trust me. Oh my God, there were so many obstacles along the way to doing this, and there were so many points where I almost gave up. But yeah, I just did it because I wanted. I don't know why. This is such a silly story. Like it is a very silly story, but it makes me laugh, and it's like an expression of my love for my city and my frustration with my city as well. And so I just really wanted to tell this story, so I just kept pushing and pushing, and I'm uh, an insanely stubborn person. The Otazos are very, very stubborn. So I just kept at it, and here, until finally I published it. Same thing with the mangroves. Like, why do I keep doing this? Who wants to go into a swamp to pick up other people's trash? Me, like every week, because it's just something I've committed myself to, something that's important to me. So I do it despite all the hardship and all the pain and all the injuries. I keep doing it. So that's just me.
And do you have sponsors that kind of provide trucks, or how do you get the trash to where it ends up being?
Hey, quick note. Peter's Inner Teacher Academy is launching soon. If this is resonating with you, head over to innerteacheracademy.com and grab a spot on the waitlist. These trainings are intimate and space is limited. So if you want to be first in line, tap the link in the description below and sign up.
You can also see details about my 2025 retreats at some incredible locations around the world, like Iceland, Austria, California, and New Zealand. Attendance at these trainings will count towards in-person hours for the Inner Teacher Academy. And now let's get back to the magic.
Yeah, so it depends on where I'm working. So, I have a good working relationship with Miami-Dade County, and most of the areas that I clean up are on county land. So I just inform them, hey, I'm going to be cleaning up this area. This is where I'm going to drop off. We have certain locations where I drop off the trash. They know where it is. Like, this is where I'm going to drop it off. Here's the time. You can go get it. Say, or if I'm working with like the city of Miami, so like on Virginia Key, for example, same thing. Like, I got a permit to pick up this area. They know I'm there. They know when I'm going to be there. And these are very sensitive areas. That's why you need to like have that coordination with municipal or county government, because no one else is supposed to be there. So I'll just let them know, and they come and I bag it and I carry it out and I drop it off and they dispose of it.
How did it get, if these areas are environmentally sensitive and they're restricted access to the general public, how does that trash get out there?
So the majority of the trash comes in with just the tides. And the majority of that trash is sourced from the land. So most trash that winds up in the ocean originates from like people will litter on the streets, and then when it rains, that trash will get swept into a gutter, and then that'll then go out directly into the ocean. There's that. There's when a hurricane or storm hits, a lot of material winds up in the ocean because, like, maybe you have a deck chair that wasn't tied down, or maybe like you have a dock that gets ripped out of its foundation or whatever. Also, there's dumping. They're dumping all the time from all sorts of people, from all sorts of like different, um, I guess, just like for example, like if you have a sensitive area next to a road, guaranteed there's going to be dumping. Like it is guaranteed. There are going to be tires there. There's going to be, like house remodeling, like stuff there. Yeah, exactly. There's going to be all sorts of stuff there. And also people dump from boats. Like sometimes boaters will pull up directly onto the shoreline and just leave their stuff there. Like I picked up like literal barbecues and tents and all these different things and diapers, used freaking diapers. Oh God, that's the worst. So they'll dump directly like that onto the land, or they'll dump while they're, boating around, like recreational boaters or cruise ships. This is very well known. Cruise ships and cargo vessels dump into the ocean all the time, and that's how all these different sources of trash, they basically just wind up in the ocean and then eventually in the mangroves.
So this, since we're talking about my inner teacher, and there's this like inner guidance leading you to the things that you do, can you walk us or take us to that moment when you first started picking up trash, and
Sure.
why, and like what was it that led you to start doing that?
So ever since I was a child, not a child, teenager, child, I would go into the mangroves and explore them. Like I had this obsession where I hate, on a proverbial map, a proverbial mental map, I hate white space. I want to know exactly what's everywhere. So I'm like reckless. I'm a recklessly curious person. So I would go into these mangroves and go into these different other environments and explore them, and become exposed to this natural world that you don't really see growing up in Miami, because these are very out of the way places, and there's mud and there's bugs and there's all sorts of stuff. But I fell in love with these ecosystems, and the problem was that I would go in them, trying to seek that sense of solace and like, I don't know, inner peace. And it would all be ruined by the amount of trash that was there. So it looked, and this is not an exaggeration, it looked like a landfill. Like you couldn't take a step anywhere without stepping on a piece of trash. Going back decades, back to World War II, that had just accumulated there for so long because no one had picked it up. And I would be so angry when I left. And so I figured, well, no one else is doing anything about it, so I'm just going to methodically begin to pick it up. So I've been at it ever since. There's really not much else to it other than that because I just love this environment so much. And like when I see this trash, I'm not thinking about how it's going to impact the area in a year or a decade or several decades. I'm thinking in terms of centuries and millennia. Like I'm thinking deep time because that's what it takes for this trash to break down into microplastics, and then it gets ingested by the animals there. And I mean, it does have direct effects now, but I'm thinking way, way, way after I'm dead. So like I'm thinking that people are obsessed with legacy. Like, oh, are people gonna remember me? And like, are people gonna like praise me when I'm dead? That's completely irrelevant. What's relevant, my legacy, I think it's secured for the foreseeable future because after 30,000 pounds of trash, there's gotta be some bird or fish or crab or tree or something, some animal or plant that is going to be alive that wouldn't have been because of my actions. And they're gonna reproduce and have hundreds, thousands of offspring in the future. And that's my legacy. That like it literally doesn't matter that nobody knows who I am. It does not matter. Like because these animals and these plants obviously have no idea who I am. But that is my legacy for the foreseeable future. That like hopefully, these plants and these animals and their offspring are going to survive because of my work, and they will be around, and they wouldn't have been around if it hadn't been for me, and that makes me very happy.
When you go out now, like I would imagine the low-hanging fruit of garbage is cleared because you've been doing it for so long. And when you walk into these areas that you've previously cleaned up, what does that feel like for you?
Well, there's always more trash. There's always more trash. Every high tide brings more trash. That it feels good. Like as you get farther away from the shore, like along the shoreline, you're always gonna have more work to do because more trash always piles up. But if you go deeper into the mangroves, where I've worked, where I've cleared, it looks pretty pristine, and that feels amazing. Like especially knowing what was there before I started working. That's where I see the real difference. But I also know that with the next hurricane or the next big storm, that water or that storm surge is going to rise, and it's gonna drag all that trash into the interior and deposit it again.
Right.
So I know that with that, I'm gonna have to go back in there and grab it. But for now, it looks pretty great. It feels great because I know that I picked up trash that's been there since literally the 1940s.
It sounds like job security to me.
Job security.
Every
Yeah,
hurricane.
if only I could get paid. Yeah. There's no money in trash. I've learned that.
Well, maybe not directly, Andrew, but just think of, I mean, just your story is so incredible about having no experience, and yet that experience that you gain sets you up for the next thing. And then that next thing sets you up for another thing. This is classic inner teacher kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? Momentum, that we seek something that's unknown and we don't have a reason necessarily for it. It's more from the heart. There was this quote that the heart does things for reasons that reason can't understand,
Yeah.
And in a way that is like a beautiful thing about the story of your life. And
Thank you.
cleaning up the trash, I mean, at some point, I mean, I don't know what I've seen a lot of articles and a lot of things that have come about because of your work, that there are agencies or journalists who are kind of acknowledging you. Is that true? You're not just, I mean, Crystal knew because you guys are relatives, but there are people in Miami, I don't know what the county is there, wherever the county that really respect you, and I'm sure refer people to you. Is that true?
So I'm gonna preface what I'm going to say next by saying that it's not just me doing this. There are many other individuals and organizations in South Florida who are doing great work cleaning up our coastal environments. And I collaborate with them all the time. Clean this beach up and fill a bag and volunteer cleanup and debris-free oceans. The weird thing is we all kind of started at the same time,
Right.
like right around 2019. We all like something was in the water and like everyone just kind of started picking up trash. But to your point, like, okay, so the point of my work in the mangroves, there's a tactical point or objective and there's a strategic objective. So the tactical objective is to clean up these individual environments, Bearcat Preserve or wherever I happen to be working, because that makes a local difference to the plants and animals there. But I'm not just really interested in doing this. I'm interested in making a broader impact, right? And so to that end, I started recording my work on social media and like building this awareness. Essentially, what I'm doing has been an 8-year long public relations campaign to educate Miamians and others about the importance of this problem. And that has allowed me to talk to journalists and to all sorts of different outlets to, be in Runner's World. And I should probably mention, in 2019, I took 35 pounds of mangrove trash and built a pack, basically like a big old backpack of trash. And then I put it on my back and then I walked the Miami Marathon with it. So that's 26 miles. And I did it in order to literally take this problem out of the mangroves and expose as many Miamis as possible to it. And it was a fundraiser also for an organization called Miami Waterkeeper. And so, yeah, it worked. I wound up in the front page of the Miami Herald, wound up in, doing all sorts of media, CNN Español, and Despierta America. And like, I had friends in Latin America, like in Colombia and Argentina, sending me photos of their TVs and be like, why the hell are you on my TV? So, yeah, and I've been on NPR and I've been on all the local channels, and it's allowed me to educate a wider population. That's why I do what I do. Beyond, like, I could just very easily be picking up trash in the mangroves quietly by myself, and no one ever knows. And that, again, that makes a local difference, but that doesn't make a larger difference. It doesn't build awareness. So that's why I do that, and that's why I do so many interviews, so that I can teach people about this.
Okay, so just that strategic part of this endeavor that you're doing it, I would think it would lead to this notoriety that would sell books that actually, like right now, I'm listening to what you're talking about. I want to go out and buy your book right away. How do I buy it?
I mean, by all means, go buy my book. You can buy it on Amazon.
It's on
If you
Amazon.
are, yeah, if you're in Miami, go to Books and Books. They're a great independent bookstore. I love them. They're a fantastic partner. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely available. But like, I'm definitely not doing this to sell books.
No, I know.
Like,
We don't do it. We don't do it just to make money, and yet there is now an awareness that energetically the world operates with this kind of universal law of exchange, where effort requires support. And when you put yourself out there, there's an exchange that takes place with the audience, and the audience wants to give. So this is the paradox in a way, is that so many when I started the businesses that I've started, I went to business coaches and said, dumb idea, don't do it. I created a yoga mat that was indestructible. So there was no inbuilt obsolescence. You buy it, you give it to your grandkids, they give it to their grandkids, kind of thing. And they said, don't do it. That's not the way commerce works. It did work. And it was the same thing about, what you're describing. It was pathological, like this yoga mat is going to change at least the yoga world. And then the ripple effect is you get more people doing yoga, the world starts to change. It's because there's people out there that have the understanding of balance, how to live in balance mentally and physically. So I just came back from the Sedona Yoga Festival, and so many people I don't know were coming up and thanking me for this mat that I created. And it's just, wow. that's a big, I don't know, like I've broadcast out this energy of got to do it, and it's global. It is really a global product.
Do you know the
Yeah.
Manduka mat, Andrew?
I'm sorry. Oh,
Do you know them
well,
about the Manduka mat?
I am not a yoga practitioner, unfortunately. I know I really need to do yoga. I'm an endurance athlete. All of my muscles are super tight. I'm probably going to get into yoga in the foreseeable future, just for my own health. But I'm sure once I get into the world for real, like I will definitely come across it.
Andrew, can I ask you a personal question? How old are you?
38.
Yeah, it's about time. When you cross that 40 threshold, you're going to
Mm.
realize you're not invincible.
Oh no, I am perfectly aware I'm not invincible. I have horribly injured myself so many times. I'm aware. And like it is definitely I need to work on my flexibility. I am an endurance monster. Like I can, I can go run, bike, swim, whatever for a very long time. I can spend the entire day in the mangroves, lugging off 500 pounds of trash. But like my flexibility is my weakest point. I know this.
Yeah, that yoga is such I mean, the image of yoga is viral. This is like everyone knows the word now. 20 years ago, 40 years ago, when I started, it was 40 years ago, when I started this process, yoga was just so fringe. Now it's so
Mm,
mainstream. The thing is,
mhm,
that not all yoga is the same. And
mhm.
for me, this practice was a prerequisite, let's see, for when I broke my back. So
Wow.
breaking your back changes the environment, the terrain of what you expect to find in your body is different when you're dealing with a fracture in your spine and a crushed disc. And
Wow.
a lot of the things that I discovered, let's say, no one had taught me that. No one had
Mhm.
given me a step by step guide of how to do that. And I don't think it's an accident that Crystal invited you. Maybe it's just the cousin thing, but maybe it's something more, like we've been amazed when Crystal and I finish a recording. We always have this kind of, I don't know, what's the word? Like we kind of review what we were talking about and who the guest was. And what we're finding is this beautiful community of people that share this common thread of kind of breaking from the pack and looking at life through your very unique lens and then just going about doing what you feel is right.
Mhm.
And I think that yeah, this could be an inspiration for you to like take another look at yoga and don't wait till it's too late.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to take that back. It's never too late in yoga, and I'll tell you why. At least the yoga that I teach, it starts wherever you're at. Like it's not
Mhm.
like you have to get in some shape or some pose, or you have to be flexible, you have to be strong. I teach it in a way that anyone with any level of mobility or any level of strength can come to a class and feel comfortable in the class because I'm not cueing things that are excessively complicated or demanding, like that causes anxiety. And that's what my point here is, because yoga is so widespread now. A lot of people think, new to yoga, that one yoga fits all, or that there's a kind of a cohesiveness about yoga. And the only cohesiveness that I've been able to really see is this understanding of breathing. Like it's really important to learn how to breathe.
Mm.
And I
Oh
think
yeah.
we share that, all the different styles of yoga, we share that commonality, let's call it. But then, just like people's personalities, there's so many different styles of yoga now. Some are good for old stiff white guys, and some for 20-year-old flexible women, and so you really, especially with the injuries, it's going to be important for you at some point when you make that choice to let guidance take you to where the best style of yoga is going to be for your body. And
Yeah.
it may be a trial and error process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely very cognizant of my not just my breathing, but my body at all times. Especially when I'm out, especially when I'm doing something like cleaning the mangroves because it's very easy to get heat stroke. I've been very close to heat stroke. And so I need to be very cognizant of how I'm like it gets to the point where like just standing still in the heat gets your heart rate to 140 like beats per minute. So like I need to there's a different way of moving and breathing and just maneuvering your way through this natural obstacle course so that you don't die.
That's
And
good.
yeah, so like I'm very, very cognizant of what my body's doing and the signals that it's sending me all the time. Just because if I'm not, I will pass out and I could die out there.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can we, just to add a little bit of humor, do you have any
On
blooper
that note,
stories?
on death, I'm sorry, do I have any
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Let's talk about death. Um, no, but seriously, I wanted to ask you about any bloopers, like
Hello?
any moments that happened throughout this journey that maybe in the moment it wasn't funny, but looking back, it's hilarious because you didn't die. Or
Oh my God. I ran into a bank robber one time.
oh wow.
That was pretty wild. Yeah. So, I was giving these high school students a tour of the mangroves, and we're walking through the swamp, and I hear electronic dance music blasting into the mangrove forest, and I'm like, what on earth is going on here? I put the kids in a safe place, and I go and I approach this noise, and lo and behold, there's some guy shirtless on a little platform with a tent with massive speakers blasting EDM into the mangrove forest. Like, this is a problem because this guy's not supposed to be here. This is a natural preserve. Nobody's supposed to be here, much less, with a speaker setup. And so I go back to the kids and I take a route around the guy so that he won't see us. And I go to the county. I'm like, hey, this is a problem. There's a guy in there and he's doing all this crazy stuff. Please go get him. And they're like, all right, we're gonna go get him. And then, they go out there with a pair of police officers and they can't find him, even though I sent them a pin on Google Maps showing exactly where he was. They couldn't find him. Okay. So I go back out in the mangroves. The guy's still out there blasting EDM. Also, he's accumulated like literally a ton of trash all around him. And he had chopped down a bunch of red mangroves, which is illegal to do in Florida. They're a protected species. So I go back to the county. I'm like, hey, he's still out there. Can you please go get him? They're like, okay, all right. And then I had to physically take a guy from the county and walk him straight to the tent about like 15 feet away and show him, there's a guy. Please go get him. Okay, they don't get him. This guy grabs his canoes his happy self over to Miami Beach, and beaches his canoe on the sand. Walks past the beach into the actual city, into a bank without a mask, without a gun, and demands money. And the cashier just gives him whatever they have in the cash register. He takes the money, gets back into his canoe, paddles his happy self back over to Key Biscayne to his little place in the swamp, and then everyone's like, "Oh, this is a problem," and they had to send the SWAT team to go get him. So that happened.
How did they know it was the same guy? I mean,
They got him on camera.
right.
Like the guy just walked in to this bank and like said, "Give me your money," and then they did. Like he was. You
That's
come
crazy.
across some really insane people, present company included, in the
Right.
mangroves all the time, and like there's just no telling who you're gonna like. If you're in there, you're probably a weirdo. You're probably doing something odd. So yeah, that's ever present in my mind.
Yeah. You're touching on something that has been a part of my life is that label of being odd. Like
Yeah.
I started yoga in the 70s as a man, and
Mhm.
at that point it was pretty much a woman's exercise format.
Uh-huh.
There weren't a lot of men, and that label is kind of a badge of honor in a way, like sometimes where the decision, the when you have this, like we talked before, this pathological kind of makeup that gives you some inspiration to do something that's odd, that is
Mhm.
socially uh, odd. I think it's It's a good thing. I do.
Oh yeah, I love it. I definitely wholeheartedly acknowledge and accept that I am irredeemably odd. And yeah, it's great. I mean, what's normal? Normal's so boring.
It's,
Like,
it's the
okay,
worst
cool.
insult, isn't it? Like, you're
Yeah, okay.
normal.
What, I mean, what conversation am I gonna have with you? Probably not a very fun one. But I guarantee you I have some crazy stories I can tell you. That'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, I love being a weirdo. I love it. It's just part of who I am.
Okay, so I want to get back to satire a little bit. Is that all right, Crystal?
We're gonna have to come back
Wrap
for
it
part
up.
two
Is it?
because
No,
I know because
this is
Andrew
too
has to
good.
go. But we can
I
do
Okay.
know.
part two. Would you
We
come
can do
back for
part two.
part two?
Absolutely. Happy to
All
do that.
right. Tell us
Okay,
more
Okay.
of
so
your weirdo stories.
we have to ping satire for the next
Let's
conversation.
do it. Let's do it. Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
It's a pleasure meeting you and having this conversation with you.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
So nice to see you again.
Yeah, it was great seeing you, Crystal.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode. Be well and stay open to the teacher within. If you've enjoyed our time together, follow or subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming chats you don't want to miss.